Welcome to datascience.show, the podcast where data science meets executive leadership. We talk with top AI and analytics thought leaders about turning data into real business impact. If you're a C-level leader or data expert shaping the future, you're in the right place.
Start with a quick picture. Imagine a flash sale weekend, millions of customers, checkout flows humming, and then a third-party re-ranker service fails. Checkout stalls across 3 regions, conversion drops, customers abandon carts, legal is on the phone, and the board wants answers tomorrow. That single outage didn't feel like an algorithm problem. It felt like a balance sheet problem. I want you to hold that vignette in your mind as we work through a practical, auditable playbook. By the end of this episode, you'll have a simple model concentration index you can compute in 72 hours, thresholds you can take to the board, and a 90-day pilot that funds resilience without breaking procurement. Why this matters now? Because as organizations lean into a small set of high-performing models and providers, concentration becomes a material enterprise risk, and executives need a way to treat it like any other fundable exposure.
Frame the decision. What is model concentration risk? At its core, it's the business exposure created when critical decisions depend on a small number of models, vendors, or datasets. The executive outcomes you should care about are threefold. Measure the exposure. Prioritize remediation where it matters most. And deploy cost-effective levers. Diversify, contract, insure. That's the promise of this episode. A decision-first playbook, not a deep technical lecture. So, what does a leader actually do tomorrow? Start with measurement.
Now, the Model Concentration Index, or MCI. Think of it as a weighted exposure score you can explain in one slide. Inputs are straightforward. Decision share, the proportion of a business decision route that depends on a given model or vendor. Revenue at decision, how much top line or margin is touched by that decision. And vendor dependency, binary or graded factors for portability, escrow, or single supplier sourcing. A simple formula to start. MCI equals the sum across critical decision lanes of decision share times revenue weight times vendor dependency factor. Keep it conservative. Treat unknowns as higher dependency until validated. Signals could collect in the first 72 hours, top 10 decision lanes by impact, the model or vendor serving each lane, traffic fraction routed to that model, recent uptime and deploy cadence, and whether artifacts or weights are escrowed. You don't need perfect telemetry to begin. You need a defensible, conservative inventory and an audit trail. Run the math and you get a ranked list of concentrated exposures.
Next, board red thresholds and decision gates. Translate the MCI into red, amber, green bands so the board hears a clear action signal. Example thresholds. Green for MCI below 10. Monitor an annual review. Amber for 10 to 30. Require a mitigation plan and procurement review within 90 days. Red above 30. Immediate funding for failover, legal engagement for contract revision, and a mandatory tabletop drill. These bands must map to explicit actions. Procurement engages for amber. Treasury allocates remediation budget for red, and the C-suite signs off on acceptable residual risk. Important nuance. Use a 30-day validation window before escalating to the board. MCI is a decision support metric, not a verdict. Present it with confidence intervals and the validation plan. That both protects you and makes the board's decision auditable.
Now, the practical diversification playbook, the least sexy but most effective section. Diversification isn't just buying 2 vendors and calling it done. Think in phased ladders. Monitor, hybrid fallback, then full redundancy. Option 1, multi-vendor ensembles for high-value lanes. Run 2 different models in parallel. Use a gating policy so the fallback only takes traffic if the primary fails integrity checks. Option 2, hot-cold internal fallbacks. A lightweight internal rule-based or distilled model that can handle critical safety checks and maintain business continuity while you fix the primary. Option 3, synthetic or rule-based emergency paths. Simplified logic that reduces revenue but keeps the funnel moving. Phase validation. Start by running fallbacks in shadow mode. validate decision parity, then gradually open switchover thresholds. Always measure cost versus residual risk. Diversification raises operating cost, so pilot on the highest impact lane first and scale only when you prove ROI.
Contracts and insurance, where procurement and legal earn their keep. Contractual levers I recommend: escrow or portability clauses for model artifacts, explicit performance corridors with measured SLAs tied to business metrics, and termination or transition assistance windows. Ask for artifact escrow, not just API pass-through data, weights, seed data lineage, and runtime dependencies. On the insurance side, explore parametric triggers, policies that pay out on predefined telemetry signals like a sustained drop in decision throughput, rather than trying to quantify every dollar of lost margin. Expect vendors and insurers to push back. Two-track procurement works. Secure pilot-level portability and attestation for a fallback path. Run portability drills. Then negotiate binding language post-validation. Bring legal and treasury in early. These are commercial conversations as much as technical ones.
Operational controls and drills keep the promise real. Schedule periodic portability drills, once per quarter for high MCI lanes, where you exercise the fallback end-to-end. Switch traffic, observe RTO and RPO, and validate customer-facing metrics. Define RACI for escalation: who declares the incident, who runs the failover, who speaks to customers, who briefs the board. Telemetry matters: instrument decision share, error rates, latency, and divergence between primary and fallback outputs. Automate alerting when an MCI contributor spikes, and set synthetic transactions that exercise the model chain. Finally, capture lessons from every drill and feed them back into procurement and the MCI calculation. Drills are the place where contractual promises become operational guarantees.
Here is a 30-90-day pilot blueprint you can deploy next week. Day 07. Map top 10 decision lanes and compute initial MCI using conservative inputs. Day 830. Validate telemetry for the top 3 MCI contributors. Shadow a fallback for those lanes, and document portability gaps. Day 3160. Negotiate pilot-level contractual fallbacks and run a controlled portability drill for one high-impact lane. Day 6190. Brief the board with 3 KPIs: MCI for top 10 lanes, time to failover, RTO/RPO for the pilot lane, and cost to remediate for bringing an amber lane to green. Deliverables at 90 days, an updated MCI with confidence intervals, one binding pilot-level fallback in contract language, and a schedule for scale. This pilot approach demonstrates value, limits upfront cost, and builds the case for procurement and insurance alignment.
Key takeaways for the executive reader. 1. Measure concentration now. Compute an MCI and be conservative in your assumptions. 2. Prioritize remediation with a graded ladder. Monitor, hybrid fallback, then full redundancy. Pilot on the highest impact lane. 3. Align procurement, legal, and treasury early. Secure pilot-level portability and insurance triggers, then harden contract language after successful drills. If you leave today with nothing else, start a 72-hour inventory and schedule a portability drill for one critical lane within 60 days. We designed this playbook to be auditable and board-ready. That's how you make concentration risk fundable and manageable. Thanks for listening. If this episode helped you think about concrete steps for enterprise resilience, subscribe to datascience.show and bring this playbook to your next risk committee. That's the difference between models and value.
Thanks for listening to datascience.show. If you found value in this episode, subscribe, share it with your network, and join us next time as we explore how data science drives smarter decisions and better business outcomes.